My name is Charlie Haffey. I am a member of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. Retired. For close to 3 decades, I've been an elementary science teacher here in Massachusetts. For 27 of those years, I worked for the Norwood Public Schools. For almost a third of that time, I was the treasurer of the local, and for a fair amount of that time, I was also the member chair. Both jobs required a great attention to detail. I developed several spreadsheets that helped me to do those jobs with a great deal of efficiency. This training is designed to help you come up with some of those spreadsheets. We're going to start off with an introduction. We need to see some basic skills. The following trainings will use those skills to develop some of those sophisticated spreadsheets that can make your job easier to do. It doesn't matter if you're using a PC or a Mac. You have to be able to navigate and find the icon to click on to open the Excel program. For my Mac, I could come down here and in the bottom left corner, I could use my Finder. But I have my taskbar right here and I have my Microsoft Excel icon right here. This is easier for me. I'm going to click on that and it's going to open the program for me. And once you get into this window here, you could open a blank workbook. You could take a tour. Now, I would suggest, not today, but some other time, you take this tour. It does give you a very wide range of problems and solutions. Not something that you would really use on your first jump into Excel, but somewhere down the road, you might say, you know, I have a question about this function, and I remember that there was a solution to that in the Take a Tour Welcome to Excel sheet program. That could happen. The rest of these are templates. So if you needed to check your mortgage loan on a mortgage loan calculator, you could open this. If you wanted to use a family budget, you could do that. Come up here and you can search all templates. So if you're looking for something very specific, you could do that right here. We're going to do none of that today. All of our focus is going to be starting with a blank workbook. So I'm going to click on this blank workbook. And I get a spreadsheet. This spreadsheet up here is titled as book number 1. So I could save it as something. I'm going to just call it test. And I'm going to put it right onto my desktop. And click on Save. So now I have my workbook that's named Test. And in front of me, I have all of these rows and columns. This is a spreadsheet. And when we have a single spreadsheet, we call it a worksheet. Down here on the bottom left, it tells you by default, this is called sheet number 1. That makes sense. It's the first worksheet that we're looking at. I could, if I wanted to, right-click on this, and I can come up here and I can go and rename this. So let's just say that I want to call this the first quarter. Hit return, and I have it. I could, if I wanted to, come up here and I could go and I could change the color. So let's just say that I wanted the first quarter to be this lovely red. I could be in business with that red. I like color coding things to a certain degree. So if I wanted to, I could come over here to this plus sign and I could add another worksheet. So now I have my first quarter and my second sheet. I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to rename that as the second quarter. Hit enter, and I'm going to recolor this. I want to make this a beautiful blue. And now I have a workbook called Test that consists of 2 worksheets. My first worksheet is called first quarter. My second worksheet is called second quarter. And I could add a third quarter and a fourth quarter and so on. But let's just say that I have on my second quarter worksheet, I've done a fair amount of work. I've formatted some text, formatted some numbers, perhaps put a couple of formulas in, and I want to use those again, but for maybe different numbers. What I'm going to do is right-click on that tab. I'm going to come up here and move or copy. And I want to take that second quarter worksheet. I want to make a copy. You have to go down here and actually click on Create a Copy and click OK. And now you'll see that I have second quarter, and this is the second version of this. So I have my first quarter, my second quarter, and here I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to rename this as the third quarter, and I want to recolor this. So I got the red, I got the blue, let's go with beautiful green. Nice. But they're out of order. So I have first quarter, third quarter, second quarter. I'm going to click on third quarter, left click, and then just drag it over here. And you can see that little triangle, when it shows that it's positioned after the second quarter, I let go of my keys, and now I have first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Just for fun, I'm going to make a copy of the third quarter, and I will have a year's worth of material. I'm going to rename this, right-click, rename, and I'm going to call this fourth quarter. I definitely want to recolor this so I don't get confused. And let's see, I've got orange. I'm going to this time click on third quarter and drag it this way. And now I have first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter in order. You can tell the active sheet because the colored part of the tab is on the bottom. So and first, third, second, and fourth are inactive right now. They're just kind of hiding. Now that we've spent a little bit of time looking at the bottom of the worksheets, let's go take a look at the top. And up here, we have all of the business area of the spreadsheet. And this top part with all of the data, that's basically called the ribbon. And the ribbon is divided up into tabs. And here, my home tab is active. And you can tell because the white area is highlighted around the title. If I clicked on Insert, then that becomes active. Page Layout, that becomes active. Let's go back to Home. Probably spend a lot of time on the Home tab. What the software engineers have done is they have grouped a bunch of commands and tasks into areas that might be associated. So for example, Home tab, I have my paste, I have my cut, copy, I have a thing called the format painter. All right. Over here is where I would pretty much do any of the formatting for my text. Here in this section here, it's called the alignment group. Groups are separated by these very thin lines. So here in the alignment group, I can do indentation. I can do my vertical and horizontal alignments. Come over here to the number group, and I can do all my formatting for numbers. Then I have some other things over here that we'll get to later on in the training. But this is where you spend a lot of time, particularly in the beginning when you're formatting certain things. If you needed to, for example, you were going to be working with formulas, you click on the Formulas tab, that becomes active, and then all the material that you need for formulas is right here, and then there are some other things that we have too that we'll deal with at a later time. For some people, the most convenient part of this end of the spreadsheet is right here, these small icons right here with this little arrow pointing down. This is the quick access toolbar. So if I click on this, I open up the File menu. Here I save, undo, redo. If you want to, click on here and you can customize the quick access toolbar. So you could print from here, check the spelling, sort ascending and descending. There's one thing that I really like here. We're not going to deal with it till later, but let me show you. I go to More Commands. Choose Commands From. I want to go to All Commands. And then I'm going to scroll down here until I find the Insert group. Insert, Insert, Insert. This is what I want. I want the Insert Comment command button right at the top. So if I click on this plus sign or this right arrow sign, it's going to add it to the Quick Access Toolbar. You could go through here and just see what else you like. I don't like to clutter it up with much, but things that go up here I find to be important. So here I'm going to click on Save. And right here is my Insert a Comment link. I click on this. When I'm in a cell, I can insert a comment. Again, we're not going to deal with that until later on, but this can be very helpful and important. So let's take a look at the spreadsheet itself in particular. And for this, I'm going to come over here to File, and I'm going to open Recent. And I have this thing that I like, 50 names. I went onto the internet and I pulled off 1,000 names from the US Census, and I just grabbed a bunch at random. And here I have some content that might be related to what we do. So you'll notice that here on this worksheet, columns and rows, this is really the heart of a spreadsheet. Columns and rows, and where a column and row intersect. So for example, this is column E, and this is row 4. This cell here with the number 1700 in it is in cell E4. We always give the column and then the row reference. Up here, there's a thing called the name box. And if you look here, it says E4. This is going to be helpful a couple of times through our study. So right now you look at this and it's really not easy to read or to use. So the first thing we need to know is how to move around. And for the most part, I like to use the keyboard. So if I use right arrow, I go to the right. Left arrow, go to the left. If you go tab, you go to the right. Shift tab, you go to the left. Up arrow, go up. Down arrow. That's not bad. If you need to see this a little better, right? If it's kind of congested, what you can do is, I would click right up here on the first cell. Then come way down here into the bottom corner, and there's a thing called the zoom slider. If you click on a plus sign, it'll increase the magnification by 10%. Click on it again, another 10%, and now this is getting a little easier to read. If you zoom too far, you can come over here to the minus sign and click, and it will decrease by 10%. If you grab the button, and you can then slide it around, and you could make this fit exactly the way that you like it to fit. You'll notice though, when you use the zoom slider, that the worksheet changes its size, but the ribbon does not. You'll notice that some of these columns are too narrow. For example, in my school column, the schools, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, they all fit nicely here, but the names and the date of births, they just don't fit very well. Anytime you have a column or a cell, and all you see are these hashtags, that just means that the number's there, the space is just too small. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. For example, let me work on the date of birth right here. If I come up here and I mouse over, I'm in column C here, I'm right next to the letter C. If I mouse over between the border, between the C and the D, my cursor changes to a double-headed arrow. So if I left click on that, I can now move this to the right. If I let go, I now have my date of birth and all the numbers below can be read. If I wanted to, I could come here, again click on it, and I could drag it back a little bit more, and now all the numbers can still be read pretty easily, and I'm not taking up too much space. Over here, I could click on between D and E, and now I can see the word dues pretty clearly. Over here, I could, if I wanted to, click on this, and I could drag it back and forth. But let's just say that there were some words, some names down below row 11 that I couldn't see. One thing I can do is I can auto format this column. So clicking on A, instead of going over to between A and B to manually drag that, if I mouse over the A-B border and my cursor turns to the double-headed arrow, if I double click on that, then the entire column is automatically widened to accommodate the largest entry. And later on, if I come down here and I see that there are different names that I'm using, they're all going to be fitting in here as long as I have auto fit this originally. If I add another name down the road and it's too wide for this space, I just do this procedure again and I'm in business. I like that. It's handy. There are a couple of ways of doing this. I'm going to do Command Z, undo, Command Z, undo, 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 and I'm kind of pretty much back to where I was before. What I can do is I can auto format all of my columns at the same time. I can do Command A and select the entire worksheet, or I can come up here to the left of A and above row 1 to this space here. If I click on this, it'll select the entire table too. If I then, now that I have the entire spreadsheet selected, I could double click between A and B, it'll auto format all of my columns. I click over here just to see what it looks like, and that doesn't look too bad. That doesn't look too bad. There's going to be a time when you're going to want a few columns to be a uniform width. So before we do that, let me show you the prelim. I come up here to E, and I'm going to mouse over between E and F. And if I click on that, it tells me the width here is in 65 pixels. It gives that a value of 10. And if I come over here and I make this a value of 12, that's 77 pixels, right? So you could, if you wanted to, right-click on this, and you come over here and you go to column width, and then you can just type in your values. So say 15, all right? That's going to give me this value here. But let's just say, let me undo that just to get back to where I was before. I'm going to undo it again. Now, let's just say that I needed to have dues and stipends be a uniform width. This time I'm going to click on D, drag over to E, and now if I right-click, I can come down here to column width, and I can make both of those columns be a value of 15 wide, and now they are both going to have the same width. If you were so inclined, you could come over here between row 1 and 2, and you can pretty much do exactly the same thing over here that you did for the columns. So row height. I find that most of the time, though, people are more concerned about moving the widths of the columns. So now let's get into the part of formatting that people spend the most time on. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to learn how to format some numbers. So what I'm going to do is click on C, and now any formatting that I apply to the column C, it's going to be applied all the way down. And that will mean that any other values that I put in will have that formatting. So I am in my Home tab, come over here to the number group, and I could come up here to this box here and click on this pull down, and I could do, for the date, I could do a short date. That's what I have now. I could do a long date. That is just gruesome. I don't really want to do that. So what I can do is come up here and go down to more formats. And if I click on that, I get this format cells box. This is huge. Format cells is where you're going to spend a lot of your time formatting text and numbers. So because I was working on a date, you can see that I have these dates right here, all these date formats. You can pick any one that you like. One of my favorites is this one here because everything is in 2 digits. And when I click on this and do OK, all of these dates take up the same width. So if I auto-format this column, I just think that has a pleasing look to it. I might actually make this a little bigger, a little white space onto one side. I like that a lot. It's just orderly. If I wanted to come over here, and I'm going to select column D and E, because these are going to be money values, what I could do is come up here, and I could either do currency. I don't like currency, even though I like the decimal and the thousand separated. I don't like the dollar symbol here. I just find that to be cumbersome. So some people do this. They go to accounting, which moves the dollar symbol away. I still find that to be cluttering. So I'm just going to make this a number like I had before. But now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click on the comma style. And you can here increase the decimal for whatever reason you like, or you can decrease the decimal. Sometimes you'll dump things in here and they'll have 1 or 2 decimals, and this way you get everything to be the same. So here I have all my money values with the comma separator and the decimal place. I have my date of births sitting right here, all with a 222 format. I find that to be pretty cool. School, that's nice and neat. We don't have to worry about that right now. But let's just say that I, for some reason, wanted to change this. I could click on the column, all right, and then I could come up here into my font group, and I could change the font. You've done this before, probably 1,000 times. You can make it larger or smaller, bold, italic if you want. Change the font. You've done this before if you've done any kind of word processing. I'm going to Control Z, Control Z. That's not bad. I like that. Probably one of the first things that you want to do when you're starting a new spreadsheet is you want to format this as a table. I wanted to get some text and numbers in here just so you can see what happens. But to format as a table, you need to be in the Home tab. Right? You need to have at least one cell clicked. Come over here to the Styles group and go up to Format as Table. And if you click on this arrow, it gives you a variety of options. I've always been a fan of this one here, blue and white. You want to make sure that you say my table has headers. This row here with labels for all the columns, those are the headers. And I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to click off to see it better. And I like this a lot. The header row is in blue. The text is in white. And then all of my contents of my spreadsheet are down below, very easy to see. So if I wanted to, I could come back over here, back to table style, and I could, well, let's look at this, look at some different ones. Some people like to have a little bit more functionality. Here I've got the banded rows. Everything's kind of in a gray and black mode here. You can see the school looks different because I did change that font. The reason this is important is if you are here and you need to add another column, right? So say I need to add a column. I'm going to hit Tab. I'm going to hit the right arrow. There we go. And I'm going to type in certifications. I'm going to hit Enter. It now has the formatting for the rest of the table. And if I came down here and I added another row, it would continue with that formatting as that table. If I had any formulas over here, I was adding numbers or doing a calculation, all those would be added along too. So convert to table, format as table, is a very, very important process. And now that we're in a table format, there's a couple of things that we can do right off the bat. you'll notice there are these little white squares with these little pull-down arrows. So let me go to Data, and you can see that the filter icon is highlighted. I'm going to turn that off for a minute, and you notice that those little squares with the pull-downs disappear. If I go back, make sure I'm in the table someplace, and go to Filter, each column has one of these little squares with a pull-down arrow. So let me just say that I needed to find all the teachers in my database that were in the Bravo school. I click here, and it tells me everything that's in this column is listed once. So it's just one for alpha. There might be more than one alpha. So I deselect Select All. Then I go to Bravo, and I click out, and all of the teachers who are in the Bravo school show up here. Now, of course, there'll be more than that. I'm just doing this as a demonstration with a short table. But look over here. I go from row 1 to row 5. That means rows 2, 3, 4 are hiding. Row 6 is hiding. It's still there. And because I now am using the filter on this column, it still has that little pull down arrow, but it has the filter icon also. If I wanted to grab the Bravo Delta schools, I can do that. This is all very handy. And before I go home and close up for the day, I go back to Select All, and I bring everything back to where it was before. One of the things that we can do here is we can sort. So for example, let me just click out of Filter just to make this a little simpler. Click over here. Let's just say that I want to get a look at all of the teachers in Alpha, and then Bravo, then Charlie, then Delta. All right. What I'm going to do is just click anywhere here. I like to click on the column that I'm going to sort. And if you weren't home, pretty typical, come back over here to the Data tab. And there are a couple of ways you can do this. One is you could just click on this shortcut here, Sort A to Z. All right. So let's just say that I got to remember that Betty Gaudette's in Alpha. This is how I like to remember things or check on things. Or let's just do this. Plouffe is in Charlie. So I click on A to Z, and it's going to go Alpha, Alpha, Bravo, Bravo. And there's Plouffe, Charlie. I always get worried that this is not going to sort all the columns together. I know it will, but I just get worried, particularly if I have a large database. So I always pick one name and just follow that through to make sure all the records move with it. So let me do this. I could do Z to A, Echo Delta Charlie Bravo. Another way of doing it would be up here is you can sort by school. And let's just say you didn't like that. Say you wanted to sort by date of birth. You want to go from the youngest to the oldest. You could do that, all right? And then I could sort from Z to A. So let me just do date of birth. So here I have the older members of the faculty first. If I wanted to, I could come back up here and go sort by date of birth, newest to oldest. And now my spreadsheet has just flipped everything around. That's pretty good. There's a problem. And the problem is this. I want to alphabetize my teachers, but I have Carleen Plouffe, Shante Livingston, Betty Gaudette. You see where this is going? I can only set it up so that I can alphabetize the teachers, but I can only alphabetize them by their first name. And that is just not a very effective way of doing this. So let me show you two ways where you can take a clutter of information like this and you can split it out easily. I'm going to come up here to the Home tab and just select that. This is where you'll be spending most of your time. I'm going to come over back to the Data tab. And before I do that, I need to select the column that I want to split up. Once I've done that, Data tab, Data Tools, and I'm going to come to this, Text to Columns. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take text that's in one column and split it into two or more columns. So I click on that, and I get this text wizard. If this is correct, choose next. So it wants to know if the characters are separated by delimiters such as commas or tabs. I'm going to tell you that about 90% of the time, this is the option you want to choose. If it's the wrong option, you pick the wrong option, I'm going to show you how you can tell. So right now, I know that there are spaces, all right? Now, it tells you right here, columns with spaces between them, go with delimited, and here's what happens. I have a preview, and I can see the teachers' names here. I come over to next, and I click on that. And the delimiters here are not tabs. They're spaces. And now that I've done that, you come here, you get a preview of how these are going to get broken up. Every time I do this, I forget one step, and I'm going to show you what happens when you forget the step. It's not a big deal. You can fix it. I go to next, and you can format all this stuff. I'm just going to leave all that where it is. I'm just going to go to finish, and I get this really troublesome alert. It says, there's already data here. Do you want to replace it? What's going to happen is, cancel that. I don't want to lose the school data. It's going to take the text in column A and split it, and the first text groups here are going to stay in A, and the second group of text is going to get dumped into column B. If there's information in column B, it's going to get lost. So what I need to do is I need to put in a new column here. I'm going to show you a trick though. I'm going to go select 2 columns. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert. The reason I'm going to insert because somebody over here is going to have 2 last names. And if that happens, you could get 1 last name here and 1 last name here. Then you got to go back and clean it up. But if you have to do 1 last name out of 100 or 1,000, that's okay. I still haven't lost any data. So now I have my empty columns, my target columns. Go back to name, highlight the column, text the columns. I like the delimited option. I'm going to go to next. It remembers my space from before. It shows me that it's going to break it between the first and last names. I'm just going to go to finish. There's already data here. Do you want to replace it? I do. I don't mind that. It's column 1. And boom. It took Sarah and Esh and split them out. I don't think I had any double hyphenated or double names, but that's okay. So here's what I can do. Come over here. I'm going to rename this. First, last, and then I'm going to just right click on column 2 here and I'm going to delete it. Fix that. So now I have first name, last name, and then school. Let me go save this just because you know what's going to happen. Now, what I can do is this. I can come here. I'm going to click on last. And let's do this. Let's click on school. And I'm going to come up here and go to the sort. Now, for this one, I want the main sort option. Okay. So I want to sort by school. And I want A to Z. I'm going to go OK. So now I have alpha, alpha, bravo, bravo, Charlie, Charlie, delta, delta. So all the schools in my system would be alphabetized here, and all the names would go with it. But now let's just say that I'm doing a mailing list or labels. And what I want to do is I want to put all the staff members in alphabetical order in each school, which is in alphabetical order. So I'll come back up here, back to filter. Sorry, go to sort. And sort by school, A to Z. I'm good. But now what I want to do is come down here and I want to add a rule. After I sort by school alphabetically, then I want to sort by last name alphabetically, and I click OK. And now I have alpha, alpha, and these 2 names in the alpha school are alphabetized. Bravo, alphabetized by last name. Charlie, alphabetized by last name. All the other information has come around with them. That's pretty good. I like that. That's a very, very powerful tool. There's actually an easier way. I'm going to come over here, and what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take this simplified list. Let me just magnify this a little bit so we can see what's going on. All right. I'm going to select all these, and if I mouse over one of the boundaries, you'll see the cursor turns from a bold plus sign to a little hand. I left click and I drag that over and I move that column. Right? I'm going to do it again. So bold, cross, hand, drag it over. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the first names here and last names here. So first name, last. So I'm going to type in Madeline, M-A-D-E-L-D-I-N-E, okay? And I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to go back up to, again, I'm going to show you, well, let's leave it in data. We've been here. Next to text to columns is this flash fill. Click on it once. Boom. It'll go down 10 names, 100 names, 1,000 names, and it will know that because I typed Madeline here, I was taking Madeline from over here, and it will take all the first names from here and dump them into this column. Let me just widen this up a little bit. And I'm going to go Grasso, enter, and flash fill. Boom. That is sweet. You could click on here and delete all these names. You might want to save them for some reason. It doesn't matter. They're all going to be moving around. One thing I should do is home, format as a table. Table has headers, okay. That's nice. That's really nice. That, in a nutshell, is how you get around a spreadsheet, how you format the width of the cells and the heights of the cells if you're so inclined. How you can, in a general way, you could format the numbers, and in a general way, how you can format the text. You can then sort and filter after you convert to a table, format as a table, and you can do the most powerful thing, as far as I'm concerned, is you can split information that's too cumbersome in one column into 2 or more columns. Oh my goodness, that was an incredible amount of content in a very short time. When I teach a course in Excel, that would have taken us hours to cover that. What you should do is go back and watch this video again. You should then practice. Do some of the skills that you saw in the video. We're going to need most of those skills when we go on to future trainings. If you have any questions, please contact me. My contact information is below. Till next time, Charlie Haffey, MTA, retired.